My mom faked an injury and called CPS to get my adopted daughter taken away, so I exposed her blatant racism. A year later, she's back, pretending we're family again. When my uncle was having a wedding, he told me I could bring a +1, and as per the invite, children were allowed. So the first thing I did was tell my daughter Isabella. She had never been to one, but always loved watching the wedding scenes in Barbie movies, and that made her want to go. You see, I adopted her from the adoption center when she was just 8, and now she was 9, but still hadn't gotten the opportunity to see that many things for the first time. So when I told her about this, she had a huge smile on her face. "Thank you, Daddy, I'm so happy you adopted me," she yelled at the top of her lungs. I responded by telling her, "I'm not just her adoptive dad, I'm her father, and she is the most important person in my life." This made her smile even harder, and she ran into the living room to watch Barbie: A Fashion Fairy Tale, and kept replaying the scene where Ken plans a huge wedding for Barbie. It was honestly so sweet it brought me to tears. Fast forward to the day of the wedding rehearsal. Isabella had a tendency to be on edge and always on the lookout for danger, so I told her that any loud sounds were safe and were simply part of the rehearsal, and that if she got scared, try not to make too much noise, but just squeeze my hand so she knows everything is okay. It's all things we had practiced before, so I thought it would be okay. But we were halfway through the ceremony when Isabella squeezed my hand as tight as she could. I thought she was having a panic attack, but when I looked into her eyes, I saw sparks, and I knew she was just really happy. We locked eyes and I nodded, as if to say I love you, which made her smile even harder. And I guess her eyes really were bright, because that's when my uncle looked over and noticed her. "What the actual F is she doing here?" he yelled. "Who invite the cotton picker?" His ugly wife chimed in. You see, my entire family was white. Meanwhile, Isabella was African American. My heart shattered. I turned to Isabella, who wasn't smiling anymore, but wasn't crying either. "Why do you have to ruin everything?" My mom turned around to yell, staring straight at Isabella. I felt tears well up in my eyes, but the last thing I wanted was for them to know they had any power over us. So I lifted her up, handed her a lollipop from my pocket, and we walked out. "Baby, please don't listen to them." "I wasn't," Isabella exclaimed, smiling again. "I understand. The kids at the orphanage were like this too, but they're just dumb, right? An adult at the orphanage told me only dumb people talk like that." Suddenly my heart was filled with more pride than I even thought possible. "Absolutely! They're idiots!" I exclaimed, before twirling her around and driving to her favorite Dunkin' Donuts spot. That moment reminded me of what I already knew. My daughter was a gift to my life. Fast forward 3 days later to the actual wedding. My daughter insisted on me going without her, so I hired a babysitter to take her to the cinema for the day. For the first part of the ceremony, I let my family believe that they had gotten away with it, that I wasn't going to bring it up again. But then came the dinner. I didn't even bother announcing anything, just violently pushed my chair back and stood up, forcing everyone to pay attention. So we all had the pleasure of meeting my daughter Isabella. Everyone's faces suddenly turned to their plates, pretending to be extremely interested in the pattern on the sides. And well, let's face it, guys, some of us acted in ways we weren't proud of. As I said this, I pointed directly at my uncle and my mom. But that's okay, because repairs have been made. I have donated $2,000 to the local adoption agency in the name of Murphy, my last name. One person began to slowly clap, followed by everyone cheering. Except my uncle and my mom, that is. They looked so red I honestly thought they were going to turn into tomatoes. But still, they forced an ugly smile and continued eating. I had no idea that it was the silence before the chaos, because the next morning I woke up to 37 missed calls from both my family and numbers I didn't recognize. That's when I saw it. In the family group chat, my mother had put in a photo of what was very obviously a fake bruise on her knee. She claimed that Isabella had given it to her at the wedding rehearsal after my mom requested that she blow her nose. Anger boiled my blood. Their story didn't even make any effing sense, but the entire family was eating it up. Complete and utter bullpoop. The comments were even worse. Everyone was sending thoughts and prayers and asking if she needed anything. My aunt suggested she file a police report. My cousin called Isabella dangerous and troubled. These people had met her for all of 5 minutes, and suddenly they were child psychology experts? I was absolutely livid. Their story didn't even make any sense. Isabella was sitting next to me the entire time, and my mom never came anywhere near us except to yell at her. But the family was eating this garbage up like it was gospel truth. I immediately called my mom, but she didn't answer. I texted the group chat calling out the obvious lie, but people started responding with things like, "Denial isn't healthy," and "You need to get that child help before she hurts someone else." I couldn't believe what I was reading. I took Isabella out for ice cream that afternoon, not mentioning any of this to her. She didn't need to know how cruel adults could be. While we were out, I got a text from my uncle claiming Isabella had scratched his car after the rehearsal. Another complete fabrication. We left immediately and went straight to Dunkin'. When we got home, I had an email from my mom. No apology, just more accusations and a suggestion that I get Isabella the help she needs before someone gets seriously hurt. She even had the audacity to recommend a troubled youth program that could help with her anger issues. I didn't respond. I was too angry to trust myself to be civil. Instead, I spent the evening playing board games with Isabella and trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do about my family's sudden campaign against my daughter. I had no idea things were about to get much, much worse. The next morning, I woke up to even more messages. My cousin Brittany had joined the bullpoop parade, claiming Isabella had threatened her son at some family gathering that never even happened. Isabella had never even met Brittany's kid. The lies were getting more ridiculous by the hour, spreading like a virus through the family group chat. I decided I needed to confront my mom face to face. No more hiding behind texts and group chats. I dropped Isabella off at her art class. She's been taking these Saturday morning painting lessons and absolutely loves them, and drove straight to my mom's house. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel the whole way there. The familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood seemed different somehow, more threatening. When I pulled into her driveway, I noticed my uncle's car was already already there. Great. A 2-for-1 confrontation. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. My mom answered with this fake surprised look on her face. "Oh, I didn't expect to see you today," she said, like we were just having a normal family visit, like she hadn't been spreading vicious lies about my daughter for the past 24 hours. "Cut the crap, Mom," I said, pushing past her into the living room. My uncle was sitting on the couch, and he immediately stood up like he was ready for a fight. "I want to know what the hell you think you're doing with these ridiculous accusations." My mom put on her best victim face. "I don't know why you're so upset. I'm the one with the bruise." She actually pointed to her knee, which now had an even more unconvincing bruise painted on it. The color was different than in the photo she'd posted. More purple now, less of the reddish tint from before. "That's not a bruise," I said. "It's makeup, and you know it." My uncle stepped forward, his tall frame looming over me. "Are you calling your mother a liar?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing," I replied, standing my ground despite feeling like that intimidated kid again. "Isabella was with me the entire time at the rehearsal. She never went near Mom, and she definitely didn't kick anyone." My mom started fake crying. I'd seen this act my entire childhood whenever she wanted to manipulate a situation. The slight quiver of her bottom lip, the way she dabbed at dry eyes with her knuckles. It was all so familiar. "I don't understand why you're defending her behavior," she sobbed. "We're just concerned about you, about your safety, living with such a violent child." I pulled out my phone and showed them the timeline of photos I'd taken that day. Isabella and me arriving at the venue, sitting together during the rehearsal, then at Dunkin' right after we left. The timestamps made it impossible for their story to be true. "These could be from any day," my uncle said dismissively, barely glancing at the screen. "And they don't show what happened between photos." I realized I was wasting my time. They weren't interested in the truth. They just wanted Isabella gone. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Just tell me the real reason." My mom stopped fake crying instantly. Her face hardened, the tears evaporating like they'd never existed. "You know why. She doesn't belong in this family." And there it was. The racism laid bare. I felt sick to my stomach, a cold wave of disgust washing over me. "You're right about one thing," I said, heading for the door. "Someone doesn't belong in this family, but it's not Isabella." As I was leaving, my mom called after me. "If you choose her over your real family, don't expect us to be there when she inevitably turns on you too." I slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. The sound echoed in my ears as I walked back to my car, my legs feeling strangely weak. When I picked up Isabella from her art class, she proudly showed me her painting, a colorful family portrait of the two of us standing in front of our house. My heart simultaneously swelled and broke. This beautiful child who only gave love was being targeted by my family's hatred. "That's amazing, sweetheart," I told her, carefully taking the still wet canvas. "We'll hang it right in the living room when it's dry." Her smile was so bright, it almost made me forget the ugliness I'd just confronted. Almost. The next few days were relatively quiet. I blocked my mom and uncle on my phone and social media. I told Isabella we probably wouldn't be seeing that side of the family for a while, and she just shrugged and said, "That's okay, we have each other." Sometimes her resilience amazed me. She'd already been through so much in her short life, bouncing between foster homes before I adopted her 2 years ago. Then on Tuesday, I got a call from Isabella's school during my lunch break. My stomach dropped immediately. They never called unless something was wrong. I excused myself from a meeting, earning concerned looks from my colleagues as I rushed out. "Mr. Murphy, this is Principal Winters. We need to discuss an incident involving Isabella." I rushed to the school, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When I got to the principal's office, Isabella was sitting in a chair looking confused. Principal Winters had a serious expression on her face, her hands folded neatly on her desk. "What happened?" I asked, kneeling next to Isabella to check if she was okay. She gave me a small smile, but her eyes were worried. "We received a concerning call from Isabella's grandmother this morning," the principal said. "She reported that Isabella has been exhibiting violent behavior at home and warned us to watch for signs of aggression toward other students." My blood boiled. "That woman is not Isabella's grandmother," I said firmly. "She's my mother, but she has never accepted Isabella as part of the family. She's never even spent time with her. These accusations are completely fabricated." Principal Winters looked uncomfortable, shifting slightly in her chair. "Mr. Murphy, we take all family reports seriously." "She's not family," I interrupted. "She has no legal relationship to Isabella. I'm a single adoptive parent. My mother has no rights regarding my daughter." I pulled out my phone and showed her the disgusting messages from the family group chat. "They're targeting her because of her race," I explained. "They made it very clear at a recent wedding rehearsal that they don't accept her because she's black and I'm white." The principal's expression changed as she scrolled through the messages. "I see," she said quietly. "Mr. Murphy, I apologize for calling you in without verifying the relationship first. We should have checked our records." I was still fuming. "I want a note in Isabella's file that my mother and other relatives have no authority regarding her education or welfare. Any communication should come directly to me." After sorting things out at the school, I took Isabella for ice cream again. She was quiet in the car, staring out the window at the passing buildings. "Am I in trouble, Daddy?" she finally asked, her voice small. "Absolutely not, sweetheart," I assured her. "Some grown-ups are just being very silly and telling stories that aren't true, but Principal Winters knows the truth now, so you don't need to worry." She nodded, but I could tell she was still processing. "Why don't they like me?" she asked suddenly. "Is it because my skin is different?" My heart shattered. I pulled the car over into a convenience store parking lot so I could look at her properly. "Isabella, listen to me. Some people have very small minds and very small hearts. They're afraid of anyone who's different from them, but that's their problem, not yours. There is nothing wrong with you. You are perfect, exactly as you are." She thought about this for a moment, her forehead creased in concentration. "So they're just really, really dumb?" I laughed, despite everything. "Yes, baby. They're really, really dumb." The next day, I got a call from the community center where Isabella took dance classes. The director, Ms. Patterson, sounded uncomfortable, her voice strained with forced politeness. "Mr. Murphy, I'm calling about Isabella's enrollment in our summer dance program. Is everything okay?" I asked, immediately on edge. "Well, Well, we've received some concerns from other parents about behavioral issues. I closed my eyes, already knowing where this was going. Let me guess. These concerns came from someone claiming to be her grandmother? There was a pause. I'm not at liberty to say who contacted us, but Ms. Patterson, my mother is currently engaged in a harassment campaign against my daughter because she disapproves of me adopting a black child. Any concerns she's raised are completely fabricated. Another uncomfortable pause. Mr. Murphy, we take allegations of violence very seriously. Violence? I nearly shouted. What exactly is she accusing my 9-year-old of doing now? Again, I can't share specifics, but there were suggestions that Isabella might pose a risk to other children in the program. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Ms. Patterson, Isabella has been in your program for 6 months. Has she ever shown any aggressive behavior toward anyone? No, she's always been a delight, Ms. Patterson admitted, her voice softening slightly. And do you really think I would enroll a violent child in a dance class and just hope for the best? Of course not, but this is racial discrimination, I said firmly. My mother is targeting Isabella because of her race, and by acting on these baseless accusations without even checking with me first, you're enabling that discrimination. That got her attention. The word discrimination tends to make administrators nervous. Mr. Murphy, I assure you we would never— I want to know exactly what was said and who said it, I demanded. And I want written confirmation that Isabella's place in the program is secure. After some back and forth, Ms. Patterson agreed to send me the information and apologized for the misunderstanding. But the damage was done. My mother was systematically trying to isolate Isabella from her activities and support systems. I realized I needed to start documenting everything. I created a folder on my computer and started saving screenshots of all the messages, emails, and calls. I wrote down detailed accounts of each incident with dates and times. If this escalated further, I wanted to be prepared. I even started researching family law attorneys just in case. The next attack came from an unexpected direction. I got a call from our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who sometimes watched Isabella after school if I had to work late. She was a kind woman in her 60s who had practically adopted us when we moved into the neighborhood. I'm sorry, but I can't watch Isabella anymore, she said without preamble, her usually warm voice now distant. What? Why not? I asked, confused. Mrs. Rodriguez adored Isabella, and they had a great relationship. Just last week, they'd baked cookies together and delivered them to the whole block. I received a very disturbing phone call yesterday, she explained. A woman claiming to be a social worker said Isabella was under investigation for violent behavior and that anyone who babysits her could be held liable if something happened. I was speechless for a moment. Mrs. Rodriguez, that wasn't a social worker. That was my mother or someone working with her. She's trying to isolate Isabella because she doesn't approve of me adopting her. Mrs. Rodriguez sounded uncertain. The woman knew a lot of details about Isabella. Because she's my mother. She's using information she has about us to make her lies sound credible. I was practically begging now. Please, call the actual Child Protective Services office and verify. There's no investigation because there's nothing to investigate. In the end, Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to keep watching Isabella, but I could tell she was still uneasy. The seed of doubt had been planted. I hated seeing the way she looked at Isabella the next time we came over. That slight hesitation, that searching look, as if expecting to discover some hidden violent streak in my gentle daughter. Things escalated even further the following week. I was at work when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I stepped away from my desk, my coffee forgotten as I answered. Is this Mr. Murphy? A formal voice asked. Yes, who's this? This is Detective Wilson with the County Police Department. We're investigating a report of theft from the Lakeside wedding venue on May 15th. My stomach dropped. Theft? What are you talking about? We have a report that you and a minor in your custody were seen taking items from the gift table during a wedding rehearsal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's absolutely false. My daughter and I attended my uncle's wedding rehearsal briefly, but we left early after they made prejudiced comments toward her. We didn't take anything. The report indicates several gift envelopes containing cash were missing after you left, the detective continued. The total value is estimated at around $500. This is ridiculous, I said, pacing in the empty break room. My uncle and mother are filing false reports because they don't approve of my daughter. They've been harassing us for weeks. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, providing the detective with the timeline of events and offering to show him the photos that proved we left immediately after the confrontation. I'll need to follow up on this, he said. Would you be willing to come to the station to make a formal statement? Absolutely, I agreed. And I'll bring documentation of the harassment campaign they've been conducting. After hanging up, I sat at my desk, shaking with anger. They were trying to get me arrested now. This had gone beyond family drama into something much more sinister. I called my lawyer immediately. I'd used her services during the adoption process, and she knew our situation well. She agreed to meet me at the police station the next day. That night, I tried to act normal around Isabella, but my mind was racing. What if they tried to take her away from me? What if CPS got involved because of these false accusations? The thought of Isabella going back into the system because of my family's racism was unbearable. I watched her as she did her homework at the kitchen table, her tongue poking out slightly as she concentrated on her math problems, and I felt a fierce protectiveness that almost overwhelmed me. At the police station, my lawyer and I presented all the evidence I'd gathered, the timeline photos, screenshots of the family messages, documentation of the calls to Isabella's school and dance program. Detective Wilson listened carefully, taking notes. This is clearly a pattern of harassment, my lawyer emphasized. Mr. Murphy's family is filing false reports in an attempt to disrupt his custody of his legally adopted daughter. We're prepared to file for a restraining order if necessary. The detective looked uncomfortable. I'll need to investigate both sides of this situation. Of course, I said, but please be aware that any witnesses from my family will likely be participating in this harassment campaign. As we were leaving, Detective Wilson pulled me aside. Off the record, Mr. Murphy, I've seen family disputes get ugly before, but this is something else. Watch your back. His warning stayed with me all day. When I picked up Isabella from school, I found myself constantly checking the rearview mirror. terror, paranoid that someone might be following us. Every car that stayed behind us for more than a few blocks made my pulse quicken. That weekend, I took Isabella to the park to try to give us both a break from the stress. She was running around the playground when I noticed a woman taking photos with her phone. She was trying to be discreet, but I caught her zooming in on Isabella several times. She was middle-aged, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. No one I recognized. I approached her immediately. "Excuse me, why are you taking pictures of my daughter?" She looked startled, then defensive. "It's a public park. I can take photos if I want. Not of other people's children, you can't," I said firmly. "Who are you, and why are you photographing my daughter?" She hurriedly put her phone away. "I don't have to answer your questions," she said, then quickly walked away, her shoulders hunched. I grabbed Isabella, and we left immediately. In the car, I asked her if she'd ever seen that woman before. "No," she said, looking confused. "Why was she taking my picture?" "I don't know, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice calm despite my racing heart. "But we're going to be extra careful for a while, okay?" That night, I installed new locks on our doors and a security camera for the front porch. I felt like I was being paranoid, but Detective Wilson's warning kept echoing in my head. Better safe than sorry. The next day, I got an email from my Aunt Joan, who I'd always been close with growing up. The subject line was, "We need to talk." My heart sank as I opened it. "I've been hearing some disturbing things about Isabella," she wrote. "Your mother showed me photos of her bruises and told me about the theft investigation. I'm worried about you. Is everything okay? Do you need help?" I was crushed. Even Joan was buying into these lies. I called her immediately, needing to hear her voice. "Joan, none of it's true," I said as soon as she answered. "Mom is making everything up because she doesn't want me raising a black child." Joan was quiet for a moment. "That's a serious accusation, honey. It's the truth. Mom and Uncle Gerald made prejudiced comments to Isabella's face at the wedding rehearsal. When I called them out on it, they started this smear campaign. Your mother said Isabella kicked her," Joan said hesitantly. "She's lying. Isabella was sitting next to me the entire time. Mom never even came close to us except to yell at her." I could hear the uncertainty in Joan's voice. "I don't know what to believe. Your mother has been so upset." "Of course she's upset. She's trying to manipulate everyone." "Joan, you've known me my whole life. Have I ever been violent? Have I ever lied to you?" "No, but then why would I start now? And why would I adopt a child just to mistreat her? It makes no sense." Joan sighed. "I'll talk to your mother again. Try to get to the bottom of this." It wasn't the full support I'd hoped for, but at least she was willing to question my mother's story. Later that week, I got a call from the detective again. "Mr. Murphy, we've completed our investigation into the theft allegation. There's insufficient evidence to proceed with any charges." I felt a wave of relief. "Thank you. I appreciate your thoroughness. However," he continued, "I should inform you that we've received additional reports regarding your daughter's behavior. Nothing criminal at this point, but there seems to be a pattern of complaints." My relief evaporated instantly. "What complaints? From whom?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but I wanted to give you a heads up. If these reports continue, it could trigger involvement from other agencies." He meant CPS. They were trying to get my daughter taken away. After hanging up, I sat down and tried to think clearly through my panic. I needed to get ahead of this somehow. I needed irrefutable proof that my family was lying. That's when I had an idea. My younger cousin Noah had always been the quiet observer in family gatherings. He never got involved in the drama but saw everything, and he had recently moved back to town after college. I called him and asked if we could meet for coffee. He agreed, sounding curious about the family tension he'd been hearing about. At the coffee shop, I laid everything out for him. The racism at the wedding, the false accusations, the escalating harassment. Noah listened without interrupting, his expression growing more troubled as I continued. "I believe you," he said when I finished, pushing his untouched coffee aside. "Uncle Gerald and your mom have always been problematic, but this is next level. I need your help, Noah," I said. "They're trying to take Isabella away from me. I need someone else in the family who knows the truth." Noah nodded slowly. "What do you need me to do?" And that's when I started formulating a plan that would finally expose my family's lies once and for all. I met with Noah again the next day to finalize our plan. We needed something concrete that would expose my mom and uncle's lies once and for all. Noah suggested we set up a family meeting under the pretense of clearing the air about all the accusations. The key was getting my mom and uncle comfortable enough to say what they really thought when they thought they were among allies. "I'll tell them I'm concerned about you and Isabella," Noah explained. "They'll think I'm on their side. Then I'll record the whole thing on my phone." I wasn't sure if a recording would be enough. "What if they don't say anything incriminating?" "Trust me," Noah said. "Give your mom an audience and she'll perform, especially if she thinks everyone agrees with her." We set the meeting for Saturday at Noah's apartment. He invited my mom, Uncle Gerald, and a few other family members who'd been active in spreading the lies. I wouldn't be there. That was crucial. They needed to feel free to talk without filter. The next few days were tense. I jumped every time my phone rang, half expecting it to be CPS or the police with some new fabricated emergency. Isabella noticed something was wrong despite my efforts to act normal. "Are you okay, Daddy?" she asked one night while I was tucking her in. "You look worried all the time." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied, smoothing her blanket. "Just some boring grown-up stuff at work." She gave me this look that said she didn't believe me for a second. "Is it about your mom? The one who doesn't like me?" Kids pick up on way more than we give them credit for. I sat on the edge of her bed, trying to figure out how much to tell her. "Some people in my family are being mean," I admitted, "but we're going to fix it soon, I promise." She nodded seriously. "We should make them cookies. My teacher says it's hard to be mean with a mouthful of cookies." I laughed and kissed her forehead. "That's actually pretty smart. Maybe we'll try that." Saturday arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. Noah had set up his phone to record in his living room, hidden but with a clear view of the seating area. I dropped Isabella off at her friend Zoe's house for a play date, telling her I had some errands to run. "Have fun with Zoe," I said, watching her skip up the driveway to where Zoe and her mom were waiting. "I'll pick you up in a few hours." I parked down the street from Noah's apartment building, close enough to get the recording quickly, but far enough that no one would spot my car. The plan was for Noah to text me when everyone left, then I'd come get the phone with the evidence. The minutes crawled by. I kept checking my phone, jumping every time it buzzed only to find it was work emails. emails or news alerts. Finally, after what felt like days, Noah texted, "They're gone. You need to hear this." I practically ran to his apartment. Noah looked drained when he opened the door, like he'd aged 5 years in 2 hours. "That bad?" I asked. "Worse," he replied, handing me his phone. I knew they were prejudiced, but this is another level. "I'm sorry, man." We sat at his kitchen table as he played the recording. First came the mundane small talk, people arriving, getting drinks. Then Noah's voice, carefully casual. "So what's really going on with Isabella? I keep hearing different stories." My mother's voice came through clearly. "That child is a menace. She's violent, manipulative. She's got my son completely fooled." Uncle Gerald chimed in. "He's throwing away his relationship with his real family for some random black kid he picked up. It's unnatural." I felt sick listening to them, but forced myself to keep going. The conversation got worse as they relaxed, thinking they were among allies. "We need to get her away from him," my mother said. "I've been calling everyone. Her school, her activities. Someone needs to investigate." "What about the bruise thing?" Noah asked. "And the theft accusation?" There was laughter. Actual laughter. From several people. "Please," my mother scoffed. "I used my theater makeup kit. Pretty convincing, right? And Gerald's idea about the wedding gifts was genius. So none of that actually happened?" Noah asked, sounding appropriately shocked. "Of course not," Uncle Gerald said dismissively. "But who's going to believe him over all of us? We just need enough complaints to get CPS involved." "And then what?" Noah pressed. "Then they'll take her away," my mother said simply. "Put her back where she belongs, and eventually my son will thank us for saving him from this mistake." The recording continued with them discussing more plans to sabotage my relationship with Isabella. By the end, I was shaking with rage. "This is exactly what we needed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "They admitted to everything." Noah nodded grimly. "What's the next step?" I thought for a moment. "I need to talk to my lawyer, and then I'm going to confront them, but not alone." I picked up Isabella from her playdate, trying to act normal despite the storm inside me. She chatted happily about the games they'd played and the cookies they'd made. I focused on her voice, reminding myself what I was fighting for. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and met with my lawyer, Sophia Lewis. She listened to the recording, taking notes with an increasingly grim expression. "This is textbook harassment," she said when it finished, "and filing false police reports is a crime. You have grounds for a restraining order at minimum." "I want more than that," I said firmly. "I want them to face consequences for what they've done, and I want to make sure they can never try this again." Sophia nodded. "We have options. First, let's get this recording to Detective Wilson to clear up the theft accusation permanently. Then we'll contact each organization they've harassed, the school, dance program, etc., with proof that the complaints were fabricated. And my mother, Uncle Gerald, we can pursue harassment charges. And with this evidence of them filing false police reports, there could be criminal consequences." I left her office with a plan and a sense of control I hadn't felt in weeks. That afternoon, I called Detective Wilson and emailed him the recording. His response was immediate. "This changes everything," he said. "I'll be closing the theft investigation officially, and we'll be looking into charges for filing a false report." Next, I contacted Principal Winters and Ms. Patterson at the dance program, sending them relevant clips from the recording. Both were horrified and immediately assured me that Isabella's standing in their programs was secure. Then came the hardest part, confronting my family. I decided to do it at my mother's house, where this all started. But this time, I wouldn't be alone. I asked Noah to come with me, along with my lawyer and Detective Wilson, who agreed to be present as a concerned law enforcement professional after hearing the recording. He made it clear he wasn't there in an official capacity, but his presence would lend weight to our confrontation. We arranged to meet at my mother's house that evening. I didn't warn her we were coming. I wanted the element of surprise. When we pulled up, I noticed several other family members' cars in the driveway. Perfect, an audience. My mother's face when she opened the door was priceless. First confusion, then alarm as she registered who was with me. "What's this about?" she asked, trying to sound indignant, but unable to hide her nervousness. "We need to talk," I said simply, walking past her into the living room where Uncle Gerald and several others were gathered. They all fell silent when they saw Detective Wilson and my lawyer. "I think you all know why we're here," I said, standing in the center of the room. "I have proof of everything you've been doing." My mother tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "Save it. We have recordings of you admitting to making false accusations against my daughter, admitting to filing false police reports, admitting to harassment." I played a short clip from Noah's recording, the part where my mother laughed about the fake bruise. The color drained from her face. "You've been recording us?" Uncle Gerald sputtered. "That's illegal." "Actually," my lawyer interjected smoothly, "Ohio is a one-party consent state. The recording is perfectly legal and admissible." Detective Wilson stepped forward. "Mrs. Murphy, Mr. Sanders, filing a false police report is a serious offense. Based on this evidence, we'll be pursuing charges." My mother's face crumpled into her familiar victim expression. "I was just trying to protect my son. That child is dangerous. Stop it," I said, my voice hard. "Isabella is a 9-year-old girl who has done nothing wrong except exist in a skin color you don't approve of. She is kind, smart, and resilient, despite everything she's been through, including your disgusting behavior." I turned to address everyone in the room. "I came here today to make something very clear. This stops now. All of it. The lies, the calls, the harassment. It stops, or you will face legal consequences." My Aunt Debbie, who had been quiet until now, stood up. "I want to see this recording. All of it." Noah pulled out his phone and played more clips. My mother and uncle planning their campaign, laughing about their lies, openly discussing their racism. The room grew uncomfortably silent. "I had no idea it went this far," Aunt Debbie said finally, looking at my mother with disgust. "What is wrong with you, Margaret?" One by one, other family members started distancing themselves from my mother and uncle. Cousin Brittany admitted she'd only repeated what she was told to say. My Aunt Joan apologized for doubting me. The family's response wasn't immediate or universal. A few still seemed uncertain, exchanging glances or staying silent rather than openly condemning my mother. But I could see the tide turning as they processed what they were hearing. My mother, seeing her support crumbling, tried one last desperate tactic. She clutched her chest and gasped dramatically, sinking into a chair. My heart. I think I'm having a heart attack. No one moved to help her. We'd all seen this performance before. Should I call an ambulance, Mrs. Murphy? Detective Wilson asked calmly, clearly not buying it either. My mother glared at him, then at me, dropping the act entirely. You're choosing her over your own mother. Your own blood. Yes, I said simply. Every time. Because she's my daughter, and you're just someone I used to know. I left with Noah, my lawyer, and Detective Wilson, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The battle wasn't completely over. There would be paperwork, possible court appearances, and the process of rebuilding relationships with the family members who deserved a second chance. But the worst was behind us. When I picked up Isabella from school the next day, I took her for ice cream to celebrate, though she didn't know what we were celebrating. Guess what? I said, as she dug into her chocolate sundae. We don't have to worry about those mean people anymore. She looked up, ice cream already smeared around her mouth. Your mom and the others? Yep, they can't bother us anymore. She considered this while licking her spoon. Good, they were really dumb. I laughed. Yes, they were. A week later, I hosted a small gathering at our house, a fresh start with the family members who had apologized and wanted to be part of our lives. Noah was there, along with Aunt Joan, Aunt Debbie, and a few cousins. Isabella was initially shy, hiding behind my legs when they arrived. It's okay, I assured her. These are the good ones. Slowly, she warmed up, especially when Aunt Debbie brought out a gift, a beautiful handmade quilt with Isabella's name embroidered in the center. I want you to know you're part of this family, Aunt Debbie told her, kneeling to her level. And we're so happy you're here. Isabella ran her fingers over the stitching of her name, then looked up with that brilliant smile I loved so much. Thank you. I like being part of a family. Later, as everyone was eating in the backyard, Noah pulled me aside. Any word on the charges? My mother and uncle are both facing misdemeanors for filing false reports, I told him. Nothing that will put them in jail, but enough to create a record and hopefully deter them from trying anything else. And the restraining order? Approved yesterday. They can't come within 500 feet of us or contact us in any way. Noah nodded. Good. You know, I never thought I'd be the family whistleblower, but I'm glad I was. I watched Isabella laughing with our relatives, finally getting the family welcome she deserved. Me too. Sometimes family is who you choose. And sometimes, Noah added, it's a 9-year-old girl who's smarter than all of us put together. I couldn't argue with that.